I'm doing this a lot earlier than I intended, um, mainly because I have some stuff I want to see if I can do later on. And I really am sick and tired of a lot of the contemporaries that I have. So let me break this down. Late last night, I interacted with a character I had cut off about a month ago. And this was probably 5, 6 weeks ago, definitely over a month ago. Um, but I'd caught wind of the fact that they had been saying some things about me behind my back, so I decided to, I guess, confront them over it. And it's so funny. People actually try to make it seem as if you're doing something to them. Like basically, uh, if I say something to you, it's bad. If I say something about you without speaking to you, it's also an issue. But this has to do with the topic of the romance crap. Let me say hello to Mark. And I spoke to this person between October or September of last year until July of this year, about this chick thing, about how annoying it is. And when I talk about how rhetoric feels useless and how sometimes when you speak to people, they let words go right past them, like, their kitty pride and they have things phased through. It's literally just like that. Um, when I mentioned before that I get tired of the chick stuff getting brought up over and over, I can already picture the response to that. Oh, well, you chose to talk about it in videos. But that's not what I'm referring to. You see, there are plenty of people who I can corroborate, um, know me outside of YouTube or some other website, and they ask me about this um, entanglement of mine. And I always have a hard time responding because usually I'll just say no, but it's hard to say that without wanting to expand on it, say, oh, yeah, I would have someone if one of these chicks would actually reciprocate. And I feel that temptation because I know if I don't go further into it, they wonder, they speculate, and a lot of times it comes to them asking me the same thing again. But I wanted to read some of the stuff that was written here by this clown because it was really significant in terms of exacerbating my discontent. Also, if you couldn't tell by now, the reason I picked that title is because I genuinely, and I've said before, I hate the chick thing. I hate the fact that you can go out here and talk to dozens of them and get the exact same result, seemingly no matter what you do. And you have these people who can't just accept the fact that maybe there are some people who do not have some deficiency and just aren't going to get with another person because no one else is into them or actually wants to take it to that level. For some reason, this is a hard thing for people to comprehend or understand to such an extent that they'll ignore reality and try to impose their thought process of how things are versus what's actually going on. See if I can find this nonsense. So I don't identify with any of these different groups. You already know which ones I'm talking about. You don't have to say their names. And that's because I don't feel the need to proclaim that I'm sick of trying to talk to chicks. I just decided a while ago I was not going to bother trying to talk to them anymore. And I don't bemoan people who get together and speak about this stuff and, talk about how dumb it is because it is dumb. It is ridiculous when you have to talk to this many people to get a date. It makes no sense to me. Let me say hello to Elliot. Um, so imagine yourself talking to someone, and I guess to further clarify, this conversation isn't that long because I ended. but it's got enough. You know when there's a person you've stopped speaking to and they do enough stuff in that little brief relapse of knowing each other again or interacting again, where you're reminded specifically of why you stopped talking to them. So there's a point in this dialogue where this person asked me, you know, do you want to hear other perspectives? And I said no, because I've already heard them. I've read them on these different dating websites, and I really have no more patience for them. That was my answer, and it was very concrete. There was no if ands about it. It was as I think direct as you can get. So imagine my surprise when maybe two or three more responses into this dialogue, she sends me the number and email address of some, I guess, therapist person. And I've been a proponent of being really disgusted by the um, attacks, the smears made online about the mental health of people who can't get with someone. It always drives me crazy that you can have someone that is able to work a job or get some advanced degree in school, or just really function as a normal society contributing person, and because this one thing doesn't go their way, which is decided by some other person, they must need some kind of counseling. So you have to get punished for someone else's decisions. But I guess that's not new. We all know about how if you're not with some woman by a certain age, then you're automatically homosexual, and uh, you know all the rest of that nonsense. Let's see if I can find anything else here that's worth picking up before I go on my tirade. I should also mention I took a little bit of thinking about this, and I didn't really specifically plan it out as far as what all I was going to say. I had a basic idea, but getting there is different part of it. Let's see. David says my mother is trying to do that to me, and she knows nothing and mimics a lot. That's kind of my point, that my philosophy of only speaking about this with my best friend and other people who I know have had the same experience came from the fact that it is a collective group of guys who got sick of being ignored or otherwise not paid attention to by their female contemporary. And I tried to explain this to this broad. I said, what the hell would I look like if I walk into a room full of women and I go, I understand how you feel when you have your period. Like, it wouldn't make any sense, and people would think I was crazy for even attempting to make it seem as if that was the case. But for some reason, when uh, if these people who have not had this experience, be they male or female, poke their nose into this thing and start asking all these questions, it's considered, some genuine curiosity and a great thing they're trying to do. And I wouldn't. I've explained this before. If someone wants to ask questions, more often than not, I don't have a problem with it. But when you start to, I guess, what's an example? So if a woman were to tell me, David, I'll read your comment in a moment, but I'm just giving an example of this. If a woman were to tell me that she went on a date with a man and he, I don't know, slapped her, didn't pay for the meal, whatever, even if I thought that might have gone down one way or another, you know, we all leave stuff out here and there. I wouldn't doubt the basic premise, because I know there are plenty of people, male or female, who do put their hands on someone. Uh, so imagine my frustration when I recount to this character, this uh, individual, that I had a chick I talked to, and you might have seen this in that video from December on Reddit, who was fine with messaging me by text, but when I said, "Hey, can we move this to an actual call?" she told me that would never happen, and that if I didn't want to do it her way, I didn't have to communicate with her anymore. And I told this to this clown, right? The one that I had this exchange with, and her response was to go, I think that you might have been misinterpreting what she was saying, and she might have been saying she wasn't ready yet to do that yet." And I wanted to just take my phone and disassemble it and just see how, if in the meantime I could figure out where she would even think that makes any sense. You just had someone explain to you how a person said, "If you don't speak to me in this format, go away." And your response is to tell them that the person didn't really mean that. And guys, this isn't like I had a phone call and there's no record and take a word for it. We're talking about me having to dig through my email or the Reddit Messenger system and pull up this damn conversation with this other bimbo, and mention and read aloud what was said, just so I can disprove this made up theory this person concocted in their head to make this broad sound less like a prick. And I'm just so tired of talking to people, and it's always by text where you write stuff to someone and they have this weird tendency to ignore whatever parts you're specifically mentioning in this conversation. There's a line in here where, because people love to do their little psychoanalyzing thing. This is a line that she has in here. I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to read this to you, and I'm going to explain to you why it's stupid. In your case, I truly think you'd prematurely push away any, and then she quotes me, female idiot that did reciprocate your interest at this point. I want you to understand that there are two things about me. I don't consider myself smart, but I consider myself patient and very organized. Um, this character that just sent me this message that is pissing me off and kind of, I guess you can hear it here. Um, I started speaking to her in either September or October. I didn't, and she was pissing me off as early as October or November rather. And I did not cut off all interactions with her until July. Now, I want to ask you something. In what world is 8 months of talking to someone prematurely pushing them away? In what twisted version of reality is 8 months of speaking to someone prematurely pushing them away? I want an answer. I want to know. And I understand we all have our different ideas of time. Some people think 2 months is long. Some people think 2 years is short. But that's kind of my point, that these people say things that they don't really they don't have a specific answer for. My response was, I'm not going to wait 2 years for someone to decide I'm worthy of taking them out on a date. If I wasn't good enough when I first met that person, I'm not good enough 1,000 days later. And I said that because what the hell do you mean by premature? And sure enough, because she's not bright, she doesn't answer that question and she jumps to something else. So right after saying that, she goes, nobody reciprocates when nobody recognizes when they're edging toward extremism. Let me say, to Ruben, this is a romance thing and you might not be that interested. It's cool. I'll do something political, just throughout the rest of the week. So you'll have plenty of content to chew through. Um, but going back to what I was saying, in this response where she says they don't talk about this is her talking about the group of people that all congregate and get together to discuss men who can't get dates or whatever. And she says at one point, nobody recognizes when they're edging toward extremism. And this is her making a little shot at what I was trying to say, of like my point of how I just leave people alone and try to stay away from them. Yeah, Elliot, that's still something I intend to do. Um, Again, I'll get to your comment. Let me just finish my point. I asked her in my next response. I said my extremism in quotation marks is not wasting my time talking to individuals that don't care about me. What a radical ideology. Because I couldn't, like, here's the thing, right? I read about all these different stories. We had the Bianca thing happen last month where you had this chick get her throat slashed by some guy that, she was, some people say she was pissing off, some people say was just crazy. But the point is that the guy obviously, indisputably, thought this was someone that mattered to him. And, most people would say that's a step further than a lot of other people who've had this problem would go. So when you look at what he did, or what any of these other people who go out and kill someone that they liked at one point did, my extremism, my, horrible thing that is so far radical is to just leave people alone. I stopped literally the exact same night this clown turned down my request for a date, which was only offered because I was trying to see if I could salvage something out of this, uh, you know, ball of stupidity that she is. The same night that she turned that down, I stopped speaking to her. I cut off ties. Now, let me read Elliot's comment. And I did that because, again, I leave people alone when they have nothing else to offer me. Elliot says, there's a girl I work with, and I've stopped talking to her for 2 months and a half due to her having feeling toward a criminal, even though unaware of her feelings before asking her out. It's messed up. I'm very disappointed in Elliot. Shame on you. Uh, better go to church this Sunday. Mark says, anyone who chooses to blame and shame you for this particular problem, which is not the fault of yourself, cut them off permanently. That includes friends and family. Well, here's what is so frustrating about her. She has this thing where she can't decide when to just cut something off, and she sees it as a sign of tenacity that she won't have the strength to just walk away. If someone, for example, goes up to me and they call me an idiot, they say I'm stupid, um, no words minced, right? I don't care if that person is someone I've known for 10 years, my entire life. I'm going to cut them off because I have standards, for the type of people I interact with and for the type of things they're allowed to say around me. This clown really thinks, oh, well, you might have called me a bimbo, but, I believe that you were just mad that day, and I don't quit so easily. And this is the same one in Lady Lack and Logic that told me that I supposedly was hurting myself by getting rid of people who literally do nothing for me other than antagonize me and get on my nerves. So this is the same person here for a reappearance. David says she was trying to keep you in the friend zone and it blew up somehow. Then she would give up everything. They just want to use people and shame you into doing so. Yeah, but like here's my thing, because it's almost like when I think of the chick thing, I think of a hamster wheel where the little animals running. But you know what those things look like, a little circle. And I say that because I know what it's like to go on dating websites and read. I was reading one of them earlier today. It was posted earlier this year where the person said, you are complete. Uh, it can happen at any age, all this mumbo jumbo, right? I know what it's like to go through periods where you think that you're this worthless. Like, I remember being, the first time I ever got depressed was when I was in ninth grade and I got turned down by this chick. And I saw all these different people dating online and dating at school. And I was like, what the hell is so wrong with me to where I can't get one of these? And it was like every single year, so I kept listening to all these different advice people and going and reading these articles and getting the same result. That I just said, you know what? At some point, when you're sitting here and trying to accept people for who they are and not hold them to some high standard of beauty or personality or intellect, you got to just yank the chain or the cord out of the socket and call it what it is. This is stupidity on the part of the opposite sex. I mean, what else do you call it when you have someone who can function in society, uh, who is willing to accept you for what you are? And like I don't understand it. It's literally just they don't get turned on enough by you. And I'm so grossed out by the fact that you have um, a large number of people on this website that actually think, oh, if I just go over here and type this little comment about how he looks, I'll feel so much better. It's like like you really don't get that out of the loads and loads of guys who have this exact same problem. A bunch of them don't look like me. They don't wear the same kind of stuff I wear. I had a guy come my on my thing and start talking about the background. It's like, dude, it's not relevant. Roman says single motherhood and there is the new world order. That's why I said it's a feminist society and I'm not in it. You know, I made that example earlier. If I went up to a bunch of chicks and I said, "Hey, let me show you how to have a period," people would look at me like I was crazy because they would fully understand the fact that it was something I was speaking about as if I were an expert that I'd never experienced. So why the hell can some random chick that has never been rejected or had to bust a grape able to dictate how I should feel about going and speaking to a bunch of idiots and getting the same result over and over? I think that's a fair question. Something has to give. Men are going to start back in order. Well, look, Mark, this is kind of my point that when I stopped approaching these broads, I did that because I got tired of sitting back every single year and taking people's advice, um, starting some new dialogue with one of them that goes on for weeks or months and always getting the same result, like no matter what I did. If I was direct and stated, "Hey, I'm interested," you get that result. If I try to be friendly and not do anything, same thing. And I couldn't keep letting them let me down by offering these new uh rejections. So I just said screw it. And again, that's not because I'm some quitter. I we're talking about a period of what, 6 years. I wanted a means to an end. I didn't want to, I had to go through all of high school with that, with the exception of I mentioned her before, the gold digger that I dated, the one that was, you know, in her early 20s, but begging a high school senior for money. But that's the kind of person I'm supposed to feel bad, doesn't reciprocate or whatever. Roman says, I say people should free themselves from feeling obligated to achieve milestones, only causing them stress and despair. Well, that's why I stopped approaching them because I didn't feel any better the more I spoke to them. Mark says, to be honest, so which means Mark's been lying the entire stream. If the women experience what you've gone through, they'd probably kill themselves in a week. It wouldn't be a week, it'd probably be a year. Because I just know that by the time I got to, um, like people like to talk about, you're so young or whatever. They should have seen me by, um, 10th grade. That was when it first started setting in that this could really not actually change. And, I watched, one of the things she was writing, and it was funny because when I first interacted with her, she said, uh, wait 5, 10, 15 years. And, we've been over the fact that we have people who are, dying at earlier ages that are, um, the 30-year low for birth rates. There's a lot of stuff that suggests via fact that people are not living as long, that people are having less children. And it's like, I'm doing nothing to create those two statistics, but because the people around me are, willfully participating in it or unknowingly participating in it, I just get caught in the mix. And I couldn't quite fathom how You can have someone like this broad's not even 30 and she talks like she's, 80 or 90. You tell that I told this idiot back in October about the nonsense I was going through with these, contemporaries of mine. And I give a detailed, very, unique story where I put a lot of, um, thought into and whatnot. And I actually, you can see this in the December video, the why romance proof romance is a scam one, where after receiving this thing, and keep in mind, this isn't like some random person you just decide to start sending paragraphs to. We're talking about an individual who was typing just as much stuff to me as I was to them. Her brilliant response was, "You're 20, so it's blasphemy to complain about a stagnant love life." So that's her way of saying, you know, all those years of going through this nonsense of listening to people like myself and taking advice from us. I mean, it was so condescending. And when you confront this clown over that, she acted like she didn't even know what I was talking about. Like, oh, I was just being helpful. How the hell are you helpful by telling someone that what they've gone through that has been very frustrating for them for multiple years is not a big deal because of their age? That's why I said to her, I can call you a thought, and you shouldn't get mad because you're not yet 30 or 40, so you might change in 2 or 12 years or whatever. Yeah. I've said before, I feel like a lot of this stuff is such common sense, and that's why I always tell people that I don't actually think I'm smart or anything. I just think a lot of people are really stupid and they make, um, I guess, middle of the road, kind of like on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of intelligence, maybe like a 5 or a 6 or a 6.5. People like me who aren't even really that sophisticated look like scholars or something because they're saying things that make no sense. Like, imagine trying to fear monger to some guy who doesn't approach chicks anymore by telling him that he is exercising extremism by not talking to people that piss them off over and over. Like, it's not extremism when people go out and murder each other over this, when they go out and commit various other acts of violence. No, it's extremism when someone says, forget these people. I'm going to go to my own quarters and do what I want that I can actually do without needing the consent of someone that really should not dictate any part of my life. Like that's her mindset. And what I said before is that people want to keep pretending like there's not some really ridiculous, huge, big gap between the accessibility of the opposite sex if you're a man or if you're a woman. And I said to her, you felt that you could basically speak about what I was going through when you yourself have never experienced anything close to it by your own admission. And like, I remember the first interaction we had, or rather, the one she likes to harken back to. It was actually the second or third one, but it was on one of these other social media sites. That's how much I want to erase the memory of her out of there. And it was cordial. There was no kind of romantic anything. And then all of a sudden, when I think I mentioned you before, when I messaged her by phone to set up a second phone call, she sends me this big paragraph talking about I'm not interested in anything romantic, and then admits over the phone that I didn't do anything that would even like. She's so narcissistic. She thinks every man that she talks to who doesn't approach her for a project or some other business thing is trying to have sex with her. And before anyone says, "Oh, you're over," or whatever. No, what rational person can you think of that would say, uh, "Well, 99% of the time, if someone messages you and they're trying to speak to you about something that's not a project, they must like you." There was a chick from the Caribbean who I spoke to 2 years ago, not to get off topic and we'll get back. She stated something to the effect of, she believed all the chicks I tried to talk to, I was just trying to have sex with or something, and how she thought that I was doing the same thing before I spoke to her for as long as I did. And I said, even if you thought I was for the first day or so, it never occurred to you that if I wanted to have sex, I can literally go to the state adjacent to mine of Nevada and go into Vegas and get it there legally at whatever, type of price versus having to travel God knows how many miles to some island to get with some broad that isn't even that good looking. Like I just that's how narcissistic she was. She thought she was so beautiful and so attractive and so hot and all the other little positive adjectives you could use to describe her appearance that I would have thought or it would even it fathomed in her mind that I would crisscross the world to have a one night stand. That was her mentality. That's why I said that between the big ego of these chicks, between the people that are trying to like attack me in every kind of way online and ask me all these weird questions in person. I just don't, I'm not talking about quitting or anything like that, but this is why I said there needs to be a means to an end because here's how I look at it. You don't talk to the chicks, right? Um, you have people who accuse you of being homosexual. You have people who say that's some strange, awkward, bizarre thing that's hiding a secret motive. Bleh. But then if you do talk to them, which is what I did for literally 6 years, and people like to forget this because it doesn't go along with their narrative. Um, you have people who assume you're gay because they're saying no. You have people who assume you're gay because you're not. You know, you're not with any of them in the physical sense. Like person, you might speak to them at the time, but they might friend zone you, and then you don't hang out with them. So you get the idea. It's still the same result, and that's kind of why it really feels like this thing where the only thing I can control is how many people I speak to about it, and that's why I stopped talking to that broad because every time she opened her mouth about this topic, it just pissed me off. And she does have a weird obsession with um, what men are going through with this. And I'm sorry, but I don't understand why some chick who can get anyone they want wants to sit up all day and ask another man, "Oh, how many times did this happen? Oh, when was it's weird." And before someone says, "Oh, people should be allowed to be whoever they want," I used to believe that. But you know what happened to me? It was 2 years ago. There was a female. Not not any romantic thing. So let's erase that. Um, who had insulted me over my interest in political stuff. Now, since I'm not a communist, I think people can be into anything they want. But I was derided for being interested in current events and whatnot. And this person's into buying a bunch of basically you never see them wear the same outfit twice. And I said, look, I have no problem accepting them for what they're into, even if I think it is crippling them financially, because again, like you don't need all these clothes, they're not utilities. But you're not going to be able to disparage me over my, dare I say, uniqueness and then not get the same thing back. Elliot says if I lived in California, I would save up my money and leave, look for happiness somewhere else. That's what I'm doing where I'm at. Well, again, I'm not going to travel to any other state or place on the premise that some chick might be there. Um, simply because I don't think it's worth it. Like going over there and hoping that you see someone walking down the street or whatever. And then the other problem is the ones you talk to on there that actually claim they're into the idea of doing it or seeing each other in person. They oftentimes change their mind. Like I told you about the one I had saved up to go see that was in another country. And then, you know, before this thing is even set up, oh, I'm not interested. So, stuff like that is, I don't like the finicky flakiness stuff, and it only pisses me off more when it's in another state or another country. So that's why I was saying I wouldn't do what you had said, not because it's dumb to go see someone, but because the other person might do something dumb and cancel at the last minute or whatever. I really hate, I was thinking of actually doing a video on the blow up dolls, or the silicone chicks or whatever, and how I wasn't into them because, like I said, none of this is not over sex, because if it was, I could just go to Vegas and get it. Um, but I hope more people get them. I hope more people who want to, get laid out pick it up, and I hope that they at some point make one that can carry a a wound. Because if they make that, all of these clowns are going to be out of business. Every single one. People always try to make sex seem like it's some difficult, hard, uh, inconquerable quest to pull off. Like, man, it's one of the easiest things in the world. Getting one of these chicks that doesn't annoy you, doesn't ask you stupid questions, doesn't try to get all up in your business. That's difficult. That was more of a test to see if she would say yes. Let's be real. No one wants a relationship that's crazy far away. Mark says there's a reason why there's prostitutes and sex dolls. And then Roman says they will be out of business. Yeah, because like I said, guys, I'm not a little kid. I'm 21. So you'll have to forgive me for actually wanting to find a partner with whom I can be with for a series of years. The difference between when I was in school and now is that I have really come to accept the fact that getting someone who's, kind of into, I guess how to explain this. Um, I used to think you can actually meet chicks that don't annoy you and like have some kind of romantic thing going on. Uh, I no longer believe that because while I've met ones that don't annoy me, they don't reciprocate. So I just basically said we're going to keep getting a little anything that comes our way, first come, first serve. Or literally that one that I mentioned earlier pissed me off over and over and over again. I just kept putting up with it because I said to myself in my head, there's like a minute, little small, pinky finger chance that this might actually turn into something romantic, and it never did. Um, but I'm saying that that's one of the reasons why I can't put up with the stupidity anymore. Like there's only so many conversations you can have. You're just like, yeah, 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 yeah. You say a little Megumi. I don't see myself as asking for much. I'm just tired of getting accused of stuff that like I wish people when they accuse someone of something they had actual evidence. So like I said before, if I thought someone was gay, it would be after seeing them make out with another person of the same sex. If I thought someone was crazy, I would say that after seeing them talk about what they want to do to other people, because of their rejections or whatever, you get the idea that there'd have to be something that is there for me to even begin to ponder that idea. But I think what it is that people are too quickly to pop off at the mouth, and they don't factor in reality and how someone else might feel when they say these disgusting things. So it all connects and goes together. Yeah, Elliot, I mean, it's the end of Z, so we're trying to get the end of this chick crap. You remember the one from last year with the picture of Shoutzu on Nappa's back, and it was like taking the fall for a broad or something. I don't remember. Ah, well, Roman, that was my point. That I'm tired of like these people really try to make me sound as if I'm some kind of Professor X type figure where I can just control everyone's mind and Oh, if I wear this and I smell this way, this woman will suddenly like me. And again, these aren't, that stuff was funny and kind of amusing when it's, seventh, sixth, fifth grade, but these are grown adults who actually believe that, like, no chick can just not, because I said before, there are some broads that I'm just not interested in, whether it's because of their weight, personality, there's a spectrum of things where there's really nothing they can do to interest me. And it shouldn't bother them because I'm sure there's dozens and dozens of guys that would want to get with them anyway. But the point is, I don't try to delude people into thinking that, oh, if you just follow this pattern, I'll be turned on, and my banana will rise above all ashes or whatever. It's like, get to a point where you just say, if some woman ignores you and says, whatever, then just go to another one. Like, why do you need to sit back and be like, again, going back to the depression I had, that was when I had the woman that I was really into, that I tried to contact for like a year after she had said no. And when she said no, I sat back and I was like, oh man, I don't know, this person's the one. They're so great. They're so wonderful. And I said to myself about a year later, I said, you know what? This idiot hasn't contacted me. She lied. So screw her. And all the rest of them. Like, none of these people are doing anything. None of these chicks that remotely requires us to message them or try to contact them or anything. But that's why it's so annoying when you have someone like the clown who sat back and started writing all this stuff about my extremism. And it's like, you're trying to lump me into a category I'm not part of. I don't sell any of these forums talking about how I hope these people die or any other insane stuff. I just said I'm sick of them, and all the people that try to make someone sound like they're crazy, or that they're like that you have some kind of mental deficiency because people who aren't even known for being smart are saying no to you. Like, of course they're going to do that. They're not bright. Just like the one that I told you about that got knocked up. That, you remember, I was trying to, like, get a partner year after year, and then some guy goes, "I like you," and they date for like 4 or 5 years, and then they're gonna have a kid. Like, what did she do to accomplish that? Other than standing around, like this, and having her legs wide open, when the banana went inside. Like, what accomplishment did she have to where, if that person did say no, I should go, oh man, I can't believe she would turn me down. How? Why? And that's my point. None of these people, like, the same thing with this clown, right? She doesn't have a degree in, um, anything that is related to the stuff I'm into. So why should I care what she has to say? I only get annoyed with her because she's a very dishonest character where basically she's one of these people that likes to debate everything, and I do mean every single thing, to where, and I'm kind of, I'm not really interested in going back and forth. uh and she acts as if there's no way to speak other than, Elliot, how come you don't have a profile picture? Does you not having a profile picture have to do with you not liking the channel? If you don't like the channel, would you like for me to change something about the channel? How come you haven't said hello to Ruben? How come you haven't said hello to Megumi? How come you haven't said hello to David? How come you haven't said hello to Mark? She would find a way to sneak in 10 or 20 questions in like one phone call. Stuff that wouldn't even matter to you. She would just sit there and hammer on. And like I said, you can give evidence, you can give proof of things, and she would still bounce back against it. I gave the example of the broad earlier, that told me, you know, either just speak to me by text or get the hell out of here. And I I had to sit here and scroll through all my messages to read what exactly this woman wrote, because this clown couldn't quite fathom how someone could not want to, ever get off of texting. What I just told you, where the person said, "You do this or you leave me alone." She took that and rearranged to go, "Oh, I think she meant I'm not ready yet." Like, idiot, look at the message. It says exactly what I just stated. Why would I make that up? But see, this is my point, that you get no credit when you're a man and you recount things because people think you made it up for some ulterior motive that only makes sense to them. They're a bunch of conspiracy theorists. The same thing happened with there's some other message that I wrote that she tried to play the confusion game over, where I had a woman who literally uh, didn't like. I asked her if she called me some nickname, and then she said I was being hostile. And then she said, "This is the last one I approached, October of last year." I tell her what the exact, like, these last parts of this exchange are, right? And you only need that last part because she's responding to the part right before it. This broad has me read like 10 or 20 messages. I'm just like, dude, why do I have to prove anything to you? Why do you have to argue over something that is fact? Like, what? Oh my God, I'm just so sick of these clowns. David says a lot of men make it easy for women for no reason other than to get screwed. Now look at them, ego inflated. Yeah. Um, so I said, I don't see any better way of handling this. When I do the show, when I do any of the videos, I get happy and excited. But this chick stuff isn't going anywhere other than pissing me off. And I'll come out with something here and there to make fun of it because it is stupid. But as far as like going back and let me go talk to this woman and let me ask her for her number because you know 88th times the charm, like, that's dumb. And it doesn't take someone who's sophisticated or bright or anything to figure it out. That's why I told the clown, it's common sense to say, if the last 70 people said no, this next one probably will. Doesn't mean no, it doesn't mean every single one will forever, but it's not the point. Point is, we can reasonably infer based off of how everybody else reacted to it. Um, you know, I gave the example of how if I went outside today and I asked people, if I asked 99 people to give me a kidney and they all said no, am I really going to be surprised when the 100th person says the same thing? Or am I going to go, I can't believe it. Who could have seen this coming? No, you just had an entire pattern. So that's my point. They want you to suspend reality. They want you to believe that things will get better because they say so. And again, I'm not, the fairy tales don't work with me anymore because I'm not a little kid. I watched myself dream of getting married and having a child and all that. And I saw people who didn't dream about having any of that, who only in reality happen to have the weapon of a taco, being able to get it like that. I know that snap was what was, crappy, but my point is, when you keep getting told you're going to get these things and then other people get them without doing anything, that means it's fair game, that there are no rules. I mean, why do you think we've had serial killers married? Why do you think Stalin had a wife? I mean, like, it's not hard. Chicks have no standards, and it's really just ego at this point that makes it the way it is. Um, Elliot says, if not now, when? Oh, remember she said 5, 10, 15 years? And I'm going to do an upload on this. It's called, Johnny come latelys, or avoid Johnny come latelys, where you have these chicks that they see someone driving a nice car and in some house, and they're like, ooh, I can gold dig off of him, or I'm now suddenly interested in him. If I ever get any of that stuff and they come around me with that, come here for a rude awakening. Always gonna harken back to this period. I don't care what stuff I have. Never gonna forget what pissed me off enough to just completely cut off all of them. Mm. So what do you want to do moving forward? Because watch, when you really start to improve yourself, women nature will displease you even more. I just want to keep doing what I already do, where I make all my stuff. You know, have this thing as an afterthought. Like I said, this only gets on my nerves because people in real life and occasionally some internet cats, but they're not as obnoxious about it. Still ask me, oh, are you with anyone? Blah 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 blah. And I just don't feel like explaining to them about the dozens and dozens of times I talked to these cretins and, nothing happened. Ruben said, I know a lot of deadbeat parents around here, and they do exactly what you said in your parenthood video. They show off their kids on social media like if they were accessories, including the dads. Yeah, that's my point. Like I always thought of parenthood as this beautiful thing where you and a person that you love or at least have some strong feeling for and want to keep in your life forever, bring this life into the world that you're going to take care of and that you're going to ensure has a better opportunity than yourself. See you later, Elliot. Um, and that from the beginning of its life to the its adulthood and other stages, you do everything in your power to ensure it has a guardian who is there for it at all times. And with these people, it just seems like parenthood is, oh, you know, we made a little us. Let's take a picture and put it online and get a couple hundred likes on social media because people are liking it because they think it's cute, not because they know we're mentally ill because we can't figure out how to use a condom. That's what it is. That's what it's evolved into. It's all just a game of show and tell. Look at this thing I made now. Don't ask me about its college fund or what I intend for it to be or nothing like that. Megumi says far too many people are like, then again, we do live in a materialistic world and it only seems to be getting worse. So I said I feel that the chick stuff is, I'm gonna say 99% their fault. I'm sorry, but I have sat here and I've showed you messages of me going back and forth with these people, trying to negotiate, accepting how some of them look when they're not exactly supermodel material, and it just seems like for all the effort I gave and for as accepting as I was, I just kept getting my hand bit every time I extended it. So I'm done blaming myself over, and that's why I don't get depressed over this stuff to where I'm like, oh, I'm such a bad person. I've actually had people say that I have an ego. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's the polar opposite of what I used to have, where I would get sad and, say, oh, woe is me, and let's play the violin. Like, no, David says, word do see how many photos these insane people post. Good grief. I feel sorry for the child. Whoops. I mean, kid. Yeah, but they don't care. And that's my point that if they felt sorry for that kid, they would have never had it until they were able to take care of it. I know if I had my shirts, I wouldn't put it on here. Some of the blame has to be on the guys too, meaning that they're Mark. You know my thing. I don't try to pretend it's one sided at all. I just say that the chicks have a lot more power because they get to they get approached, so they get to pick and choose. This guy actually compared when a chick chooses a guy to like the beginning of a Mega Man game where it's all the different levels and she's sitting in the middle. Yeah, I agree, David. Mostly their fault. We'll talk about your grandmother. She's a fine lady, David. I won't have you besmirch her in here. Ruben apparently agreed with Mark's comment. He gave a little arrow, just like this. Yeah, it's majority of them. And that's why I said I wish I didn't have to live in a society where people, yeah, whatever, David. I wish I didn't have to live in a society where people who've never experienced the stuff that a lot of modern males go through have this like weird refusal to just accept any points we make or anything that we are stating because I don't see how anything I've said is that controversial other than that these chicks don't care about me and that they probably wouldn't unless they thought I owned a bunch of stuff. But that's only because people wrote comments to me saying that you need to get cash or what just all this other crap that they're assuming and whatnot. And again, if I had any of that stuff, I wouldn't want some rant. And we're gonna do a league video as well where guy has all this stuff, chick has nothing except her looks, and I'm supposed to want that, really? Ruben says every woman I talk to is like that. Yeah, that I mean, like I don't know what the hell is wrong with them. And then the ones that don't act that way, they screw it up. Like Ruben, there was a chick I spoke to. She used to comment on my videos. She would delete her comments and whatever. She gave me her email. She asked me all these personal questions. Where do you go to school? What do you want to be? Da, 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 da. And I answer them. She starts telling me about how she works and I wouldn't have to take care of her. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. She lives in another country, but I'm willing to go over there. Literally days later, with nothing in between, she announces that she's not going to contact me anymore, and she's glad that no feelings were involved, and sayonara and whatever. That's so. This is my point that you put up with all of what they are. You accept the circumstances, and what do you get? A refusal to commit to anything. And that's my point. That like that's why all the children now are being born by these parents that don't even plan for them because like the only way for chicks to even have kids now is to accidentally happen upon it. Like family planning is dead. So when I go around and I say, "Hey, I want this," they're like, "Oh my god, you want to actually not destroy someone's life by planning it out?" Um, David says, "I find it funny. You know how many TV shows talked about single parenthood being bad for children, trying to get teens to be responsible, yet things got worse. Yeah, because they glamorize that crap. Oh, 16 and pregnant. Please, they let you be on TV. They'd rather let some idiot broad who could know how to use a rubber or a Luffy or whatever you want to call it, be on TV for an hour than someone who's studied their behind off, like yours truly, for a few minutes." I think he probably is Ruben. Uh, just didn't want to name them. It doesn't surprise me. They actually said that the more comfortable your setting is, the less likely you are to, I guess, do work or whatever. Like they said, a lot of these rich people are kind of not that bright, and they just get away with the lack of intellect because of the things they have other people don't. Man, I'm tired of it, man. I really um I guess I'm tired of being tired. I think when I ponder if I want to keep or if I want to go back to approaching, I just always think about all those different times I went out and got excited and did all the other stuff, and I can't torture myself anymore. So again, my likely strategy is this: gonna keep ignoring these chicks because they don't contribute anything at all. They have nothing to offer, except the one thing reproducing that they have to offer. They act like that's breast cancer unless they're having it done to them on accident by not bringing a Luffy. Uh, Again, the most likely thing is just adopt. At least won't have to put up one of these idiots asking for child support. So that's the one relief. David says most of its daytime TV shows that are bringing up stats just shove in people's faces because they can't hide their lie, only get emotional. I get emotional just thinking how many lives have been ruined by someone not getting their gamu gamu and protecting themselves during intercourse. Yeah, I can't stand this chick. I'm glad I got rid of her last month. I'm going to continue to ignore her. I have to cut all these people off because they do nothing for my health. Whether you think that's mentally or physically, I can't associate myself with someone who literally argues against reality, which is what she does, and I'm glad to be rid of her again. So does anyone have anything else left to add or what? Like I said, I was just pissed off because I'm tired of every year it's the same thing. Every year you have to, just I just don't understand why this is such a difficult thing. Like I see all these idiots getting knocked up, and then I say, "Hey, we should do it, but plan it out." Oh my god! Ugh, run to the bomb shelter. David says, "Yo, I'm at the park right now, and this woman just left the baby stroller near me so she can go talk on the phone somewhere." Of course, David. That's why I said we live in the twilight zone. David, there are so many little kids that I've seen by themselves, and parents don't care anymore. That's that's why people are as dumb as they are. That's why we're dealing with the idiots that we have now because parents didn't care. One stone cracks the other. You have anything left to add, David? Mark says it should be this difficult. Gumi says pretty much what I've always been questioning myself every year, always the same outcome with these chicks. Yeah, and then I can't even feel bad for not talking to them anymore because it's like they ignored you literally every single year before this one. And keep in mind, I want to clarify something. When I first approached one of these chicks, it was when I was in seventh grade. Then I approached one in eighth grade, and then one in ninth grade, and then like three or four in 10th grade. And then over the course of my 11th grade year, it was like 20 or 10 or something. It was a bunch of them. And then when I was in 12th grade, I didn't approach any at school, but I must have spoken to at least 20 online that year. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. And because, like, in my head, I said, there's no way you can talk to dozens of chicks and no one wants to do anything. And I'm telling you, the only one that ever was different was the girlfriend I had. I don't even like giving her that honor title, but what I always thought was peculiar was that she approached me. That's why I said it should be the other way around. David says once again, thank you for sharing your opinion and experience. Well, you're, I guess, welcome. Like I said, I enjoy when it's people who aren't trying to like argue back and forth talking about this and ask you a million questions like you're in some damn interview. This isn't CNN or Fox News. This is the Twilight Zone romance circle. So have a good Monday.